They sat in my living room, in the chairs I had picked out, on the carpet I had chosen, under the roof that my name and only my name was on, and told me that my brother deserved my money more than I did. I didn't cry, I didn't raise my voice, I just looked at my mother and said, "Okay. But first, let me show you something." The look on their faces when I pulled out that folder, I will never forget it for as long as I live. Let me back up, because you need to understand what kind of family I come from before any of this makes sense. I'm the oldest of three. My mother, I'll call her Mom, because that's what she is even when she doesn't act like it, raised us in Charlotte, North Carolina, after my father passed when I was 11. She worked hard. I will give her that. She cleaned hotel rooms 5 days a week and took in alterations on weekends, and she made sure we had food and school clothes and Christmas presents every year. I have never once taken that for granted. But somewhere along the way, she decided that keeping my brother Theo happy was the most important thing in the world. Theo is 2 years younger than me. My sister Paulette is 4 years younger. And from the time we were teenagers, the pattern was set. I was the responsible one, Paulette was the invisible one, and Theo was the one who needed to be protected from consequences. He failed out of community college his first semester. Mom paid his tuition again and told him to try the spring. He wrecked her car at 22, and she took out a loan to replace it. When he got his girlfriend pregnant at 25 and then left her, Mom sent money every month to help keep the peace. That's what she called it, keeping the peace. Meanwhile, I put myself through school on scholarships and nights at a call center. I graduated with a finance degree, took a job at an accounting firm in Raleigh, and by the time I was 28 I had a real salary, a good credit score, and a plan. The plan was simple. I was going to buy property. Not a starter condo, a duplex. A duplex means rental income. Rental income means I could live in one unit and have a tenant paying the other side, which would cover more than half my mortgage. It meant building equity, building a future. It was the smartest thing I could think to do with the money I'd spent 6 years saving. I had $78,000 set aside. Between that and what I'd been pre-approved for, I was looking at a solid duplex in a neighborhood that was already appreciating. I had toured 11 properties. I had a real estate attorney. I had a plan and it was working. And then my uncle got sick. My Uncle Harold is my mother's oldest brother. He's a good man, the kind of man who shows up to help you move and brings his own hand truck. He had a triple bypass in the spring and was out of work for 4 months. Mom was terrified. The family rallied. We pooled some money to help cover his bills while he recovered. I contributed. Of course I contributed. He's my uncle and I love him. I put in $8,000, more than anyone else except my cousin Darnell, who lives in Atlanta and has a good job in logistics. It hurt to part with it, but I did it willingly. What I did not agree to was what happened next. My mother, without telling me first, told the rest of the family that I had set aside money in an account for family emergencies. This was not true. What was true was that I had a savings account that she knew about, because I had made the mistake of telling her my savings total when she asked, during a conversation about Uncle Harold, whether I could help more if things got worse. I had said, "I'll help if I can, Mom. I have some money saved." That was all I said. She heard, "I have an emergency fund available to the family." Within 3 weeks, my brother Theo was calling me asking when he could expect his portion. I want to be really clear about something. Theo had not contributed a single dollar to Uncle Harold's recovery fund. Not one. He said he didn't have it. Fine, that happens. But then to turn around and ask me for his portion of money that was never, under any circumstances, a shared fund, I didn't even know how to respond. I asked him what he was talking about. He said Mom told him there was money. He said it like that. There is money. Like I was a vending machine. Like my savings account was a community resource I had failed to properly distribute. I called my mother that night. I tried to stay calm. I explained that the savings was my down payment fund, that I had been working toward this for years, that I was weeks away from making an offer on a property. She said, "I understand, baby. But Theo needs a fresh start." I said, "Mom, that's my money." She said, "I know. But family comes first." I have thought about those 4 words almost every day since. The meeting happened on a Saturday in October. My mother called it. She called it like it was a regular family dinner, which is how I ended up in my own living room, because I had agreed to host. Surrounded by my mother, my Aunt Rochelle, my Uncle Harold, who I want to say seemed genuinely uncomfortable the entire time, bless him, my brother Theo, his on-again girlfriend Sasha, and my sister Paulette, who I could tell had been crying before she even walked in. Paulette pulled me aside in the kitchen before it started and said, "I tried to talk her out of it. I just want you to know that. I squeezed her hand. I told her I knew. Paulette has never been the problem. We sat down, and my mother opened the conversation by saying she wanted to talk about the family's financial future. I noticed she didn't look at me when she said it. What followed was 45 minutes of the most disorienting experience of my adult life. My mother laid out her proposal like she'd thought about it for a long time. Maybe she had. The idea was this: I would give Theo $55,000 from my savings. He would use it to buy into a franchise opportunity, a smoothie franchise. She had a printed brochure. She passed it around like it was a church bulletin. Theo sat there nodding, like this was all very reasonable. Sasha sat next to him and said things like, "It's a great investment," and Theo's really turned a corner. She said that, turned a corner. Like Theo was a car. My Aunt Rochelle said that I had been blessed, and that blessings are meant to be shared. Uncle Harold looked at the carpet. I asked who had agreed to this. My mother said, "We talked about it as a family." I said, "When?" "I wasn't there," she said. "We didn't want to upset you before we had a chance to present it properly. I want you to sit with that for a second." They had a meeting about my money. Without me. And then came to tell me the outcome. I said, "Mom, that's my down payment. I'm buying a duplex in 6 weeks," Theo said. "You can save up again. You don't have kids. You don't have anyone depending on you." Sasha nodded. I looked at my brother. I thought about the community college tuition, the car, the girlfriend he left, the child he sees twice a month if it's a good month. I thought about all the years I said nothing, asked for nothing, needed nothing from anyone in that room. I said, "Let me get something from my office." I was gone maybe 4 minutes. When I came back, I sat down, put a manila folder on the coffee table and said, "Before we continue, I want to share some information." The folder contained the closing documents for the property at 40s and 412 Millbrook Court. I had closed on it 11 days earlier. Here is the thing about being the family's financial person. People assume they know what you have, but they never know what you've already done. My mother knew I had a savings account. She did not know that I had moved the bulk of that account into a separate account at a different bank 8 months ago, specifically because I could feel this moment coming. I don't know exactly when I knew. But I knew I had put down $52,000 on a duplex that appraised at $310,000. I did it through an LLC I formed in August, Millbrook Property Solutions, LLC. My name didn't appear anywhere public-facing on the ownership documents. The property was in the LLC's name. The LLC's registered agent was my attorney. The family did not know. Theo didn't know he had been sitting in my investment property for the past 4 years, because the house I lived in, this house, these chairs, this carpet, I had purchased it 2 years before any of this happened. I had been a homeowner since I was 29. I had not told them, because I had learned by then that telling my family about my financial life was like handing them a map to things they would eventually try to take. My mother looked at the closing documents. She looked at me. She said, "This is from 11 days ago." She said, "You closed on a property 11 days ago." I said, "Yes, Mom, with the money you came here to redistribute tonight." The silence in that room was total. Paulette made a small sound that I think was her trying not to laugh. Theo said, "You already spent it?" I said, "I invested it. That's what saving is for." Sasha said, "But what about the smoothie franchise?" I genuinely had no response to that. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "I don't know what to tell you, Sasha." Aunt Rochelle said this felt like I had planned this on purpose. I said nothing because I had absolutely planned this on purpose, and I didn't feel like pretending otherwise. My mother's face went through several different emotions in about 30 seconds. I watched her land on something between hurt and anger, and I steeled myself because I knew what was coming. I knew she was going to say something about family loyalty, about my father, about everything she sacrificed. And she did. She said all of those things. Her voice got tight and thin in the way it does when she's trying not to cry. And I felt the familiar pull, the old instinct to apologize, to soften, to say, "Okay, you're right, let me fix this." And I let it pass through me like weather. I waited until she was done. Then I said, "Mom, I love you. I have loved you my whole life. I have tried my whole life to make things easier for you. But that money was mine. I earned it. I saved it. And I used it the way I had always planned to use it. I'm sorry that doesn't line up with what you wanted. But this conversation was never going to end with me writing a check to a smoothie franchise." My Uncle Harold let out a long breath. He said, "She's right, Shirley. He used my mother's name. He almost never does that." My mother looked at her brother. Then she looked at me. She didn't say anything else. Theo left first. He didn't say goodbye to me. Sasha gave me a look on her way out that was meant to communicate something, but I honestly couldn't tell what. Aunt Rochelle paused at the door and said, "I just hope you don't regret this," I said. "I really don't think I will." Uncle Harold stopped in the kitchen and gave me a hug. He said, "Your daddy would be proud of you." I had to look at the ceiling for a second after that. Paulette stayed after everyone left and helped me clean up. We didn't talk much, we didn't need to. She washed, I dried, and at one point she said 11 days. "You timed it to the day, didn't you?" And I said, "I timed it to the day." And she said, "That is cold-blooded." And she was grinning when she said it. I was grinning too. The fallout lasted longer than the meeting. My mother didn't call me for 3 weeks. When she finally did, she didn't bring up the money. We talked about Uncle Harold's recovery and whether Paulette should look for a new job and what was happening with a cousin of ours who had just moved to Atlanta. Normal things, surface things. It felt strange and a little sad and also, honestly, something like a relief. Theo texted me once. It said, "Must be nice." I didn't respond. The duplex has a tenant in the downstairs unit, a nurse who works nights at the hospital nearby and pays her rent 3 days early every single month. I live upstairs. My mortgage after the rental income costs me less per month than my old apartment. I have a small backyard with a pecan tree that drops nuts every fall, and I have no idea what to do with them, but I like the way they sound on the roof. I've been thinking lately about what my aunt said at the door. "I just hope you don't regret this." I've turned it over in my mind a dozen times trying to find the regret, and I can't locate it. Not for the money. Not for the duplex. Not even for the meeting, as awful as it was, because I think I needed to see it happen. I needed to sit in that room and watch the people who were supposed to love me try to take what I had built, so I could know, really know, that protecting myself was not selfish. It was necessary. I think about the day my mother said blessings are meant to be shared, and I want to say to her, not in anger, just honestly, that I agree. But I am the blessing in this story. The savings, the plan, the LLC, the duplex, the tenant who pays early, the backyard with the pecan tree. That's the blessing. And I worked for every bit of it, and it is mine, and I'm not ashamed of that, not even a little.